So now I'm going to kind of make some extra room here in our timeline because we're working with 7 different layers for this specific project. And we like that because why? As an editor, we like to have options, right? So let's go ahead and start playing this through and see what our different angles are looking like. I'm actually going to switch the resolution playback quality from full to half. Even though I'm using proxies on my computer, there's still so much data in this multiple layered track that it's lagging a bit. So this should fix the problem. If that is ever happening to you on any of your edits, you can use the resolution playback and you can go down even to 1/4 resolution so that it plays back more smoothly. So we have this take. I'm going to turn this down a bit. And something that I'm kind of looking for right off the bat for the beginning of this is what we would call a wide shot or an establishing shot. If we start the video like this, there's no context for the viewer to pick up on. There's no information that's been given that shows who am I looking at? What am I looking at? Where is this happening? When is this happening? All those questions that they're not really going to consciously ask themselves, but they're going to view it and they'll be feeling that. So if we want to give our viewer answers as the chef that we are, we want to use an opening shot that's going to set the tone, set the vibe, and it's also going to set and give the proper amount of information that we want to give. So I'm going to keep that in mind that this green one is a possible opening shot. We also have this. Oh, and by the way I'm seeing in these different layers is I'm turning off the visibility of each track that I don't want to see. And that's going to drop down the view to the track below it. Okay, I really like the sun flares off these bottom two takes, to be honest. Artistically, I would choose these, but I was filming this, so I do remember what was going on during the shoot day, which is nice to know when you are editing a project. Um, these were our first two takes, and she wasn't really warmed up yet, so I know that there's no way, no matter how much I move around these first few notes that she's playing on the violin, it's not going to sync up. So our next option, sadly, we can't use these two. I really like the establishing of this. It establishes we're in the woods. You get to see the whole scene. You get to see the kind of set design that we have of the speakers. You get to see the kind of immensity of how big the forest looks and how tiny she is in this cool backdrop. And we have some nice foreground here as well. This whole thing was shot on a Steadicam. So we'll be using really smooth camera movement throughout, and of course, refining some of these movements by doing a post-production layer of stabilization. So that'll be at the end. But let's focus here on choosing our opening shot. So what I can do now is peel back these layers, and remember, this is the rough edit that we're putting together. So we don't need to have a super high frequency of cutting this shot, this shot, this shot. We want to make a really gradual, easy pass on the whole edit and have cut, change. And then on our second edit, we'll make a higher frequency of cutting and changing and really maximizing all the different camera angles. And this is a really kind of slow moving symphony piece, kind of the exact opposite of the past few edits we've been doing together. So this is not going to be a hype edit, okay? We're going to follow and listen to her performance and use that as the deciding factor on when to cut. So let's move all of our edits over to when the tone of the song changes. Right there. Right there is the perfect moment to do that. So let's take a look at the performances and angles that we have. Okay, that one's okay. That one's okay. It looks like we go a little bit out of focus there. So let's see what else we got. That's kind of cool. Okay, we're not going to be using that, so let's scoot that out of the way. That one is pretty cool. I like this purple one. So what I'm going to do is make a cut on our main shot so far. Let's see what's below it. So that one is blurry, so that looks pretty dang good. Let's keep moving here. And from listening to the track, the next cut would be right where we see this peak. So right here where she starts another phrase. So right there, we're going to mark that. And what we're doing right now is we're kind of working our way in from a wide shot to a medium shot to now it would be really cool to then show a close-up shot. So that's pretty cool. That looks pretty nice. Let's see our options though. Not as much of a fan of that one, so I'm gonna peel it back out of the way. I don't know what I'm doing on this take, but this ain't working. We're not gonna be using that shot for a while. Nope, we don't need another wide shot. And this one, let's see what we got here. I'm not mad at that one. So we kind of whittled it down between two different shots. So we have the kind of close up there, and then we have really the really close up. I really like both of these shots. So why don't we keep both for now? And maybe we can cut these together. Because I really like her facial expression. And that's what you're cutting on. You're cutting on emotion. You're cutting on what is driving the story forward and what is really captivating or telling the audience how to feel. So that shot we've just used right here. Let's see. Okay, that works for me. And we're going to see what's below here. Okay. So let's mark where our next cut is going to be. Right there. So you can see I just put a marker there because we're really just following the wave and the different peaks and troughs of her performance. That's a lot better. Okay, this is our next cutting point right here. I'm going to add a marker. And let's go ahead and move everything out of the way. And I'm going to speed things up here a little bit in the edit because for this project specifically, I don't want too much of your time to be focused on the rough edit phase. I really want to get to the refining and upgrading process in the secondary edit. So we're going to kind of time lapse and skip forward a little bit here. So you can continue to be cutting your sequence together and choosing the best shots that line up with the best moments. And I want to kind of go even more into detail on shot choice, shot length, and shot ordering. So when we have multiple takes and multiple angles like we've been working with, you want to always ask yourself which shot best conveys the purpose of this specific scene. In other words, which shot has the best performance or wording from the subject, or like in our previous edits, tells the best story through camera movement and through framing. You want to keep in mind what is supposed to be seen, what is important, and even what is supposed to be hidden. Just like in our opening sequence, we didn't want any questions to be there for the viewer and just show a close up of the violin. We purposefully showed a wide shot so that the viewer was comfortable knowing where the subject was, so that there wasn't any ambiguity for the viewer wondering where the violin was hanging in space randomly on a close up, and they could instantly dive into and immerse themselves in the really cool backdrop we had for this specific video. So if it's important, make sure it's seen. And on the other hand, if you want the viewer to have questions or curiosity, you can actually hide things by not showing wide shots until there's a purposeful way of showing it later in the edit. Also, with going through and choosing these different shots, you're looking for that feeling that you get when you see the shot lined up with your audio. That's that, yes, this is it type of feeling. You'll know when you land on that shot. So really pay attention to what your body and experience is in the moment while you're creating your edits. And there's a few important insights I want to share about deciding your shot ordering. Generally, you want to start off with your master shot, the way we did in this edit, and work your way in. This puts the setting into perspective, then we move closer to our subject. But like I mentioned, we can purposefully create wonder or mystery or curiosity by starting on the close-up and working our way to the wide shot, versus the normal way, which is to start with the wide shot and work our way into close-ups. The reason this is important is because it's all about ordering things in a way that makes your story flow most naturally, which is all dependent on your type of footage. And we're going to get more into this in the montage section, but I just wanted to kind of bring it up now while we're going through this edit. The next principle I want to talk about is choosing your shot length. The longer we hold a shot, the more information we give to the viewer. So if I was just to flash an image to you very quickly, you wouldn't be able to really pick up a whole lot on what's going on. But if I showed you that same image for, let's say, 10 seconds, there's a lot more information you'll be able to pick up. So if there isn't a whole lot to be absorbed in your shot, you don't need to hold it for that long. You'll know by feeling into it. And if more information needs to be given, or if the shot is ready to change. So if it's a complex moment, there's going to be extra time needed. And so, like I mentioned, if I had a long paragraph of information, I wouldn't just flash it to you in 1 second. You would want to let the audience, this is a metaphor, by the way. I don't literally mean a paragraph of information. I mean a metaphor for that of how much information is in your actual shot. But you would let it be read for a longer period of time by your audience before moving on. That's why it's so important to watch your own footage as if you've never seen it before. You're listening to what's going on audibly, you're feeling what's going on visually, and you're trying to have a neutral first time experience when you're watching back the edit, because your viewer is only going to be seeing it probably once. And when that happens, it's going to be their first time seeing it. When you're editing, you've seen a shot 10, 20, maybe 100 times. So you kind of have to consciously erase that memory of what you're used to, because the viewer is never going to have that same memory. So here's a perfect example of explaining shot length.
I was playing football at first, but once I first started playing basketball, I just fell in love with the game. You know, being in the best league in the world, playing against the best players. So I feel like it's just I belong. So it's definitely an experience, and I'm appreciative for it.
So, what we have here is the summarizing thoughts by our main character in this previous project. He's really going deep and saying how appreciative and how much he loves playing in the NBA. And we give a little extra beat, a little extra moment for the viewer to absorb his statement and his thoughtfulness behind what he said. This is a lot of information and subtlety to take in as the viewer. If we see the second example, we don't have quite as much breathing room and space for the magnitude of what's being said and shown to really absorb. Let's see what that looks like.
I feel like it's just I belong. So it's definitely an experience, and I'm appreciative for it.
So, as you can see, it doesn't nearly have as much impact because we didn't create that space. There's nothing really analytical or logical about the decision of holding the shot longer. It's purely an emotional and storytelling decision to extend that moment, leave that moment with some time to breathe so that each moment on screen is purposefully there and being seen. I think that rhymed. I like that.